Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs pregame show podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Hello to everybody in the live YouTube chat. Getting ready for the final game. Angels, Cubs, Luke, Mike, Cody. We're just hanging out. Ryan's got a day off. He's
so
doing other things. Mike was hanging around. We said, Mike, you want to come on the show? Yeah.
Man, six man off the bench.
Welcome to CHGO, man.
Man, I've been doing TikTok lives with Cody for about a year now. Finally met Cody in person today, so it's just a blessing to be here, man.
Gary Ross says, let's rock and roll. I tell you what, could you just avoid going 10 games under 500? That's where I'd like to start the night. Last night was about as depressed as I've been about watching Cubs. First of all, because it was so late, obviously, and I'm old. The second part was, the game was miserable, and they dropped to 9 games under 500. Tonight, you get Smyly trying to avoid the sweep, a season low 10 games under 500. Here's the only problem. I don't like to talk about lineups because I think they're overrated. Mm-hmm. But this is the third game in a row that Christopher Morel is not in the lineup.
Yeah.
I don't love it. Because I think if he's on the roster, you got to play him. If you're not going to play him, then send him back to Iowa. But that makes no sense either. So I don't understand how you can go 3 days without Morel. Unless there's some, maybe David Ross knows something. Maybe he's got a sore hamstring and we're not just finding out about it.
So over this past weekend, Mervis didn't play a handful of consecutive days. And so I took it as like a mental break because now he's played consecutive days this week. I feel like they're doing the same thing with Morel. That's my theory. I don't know if it's
instead
true.
of saying, you know what, you can go fix it at Iowa for a couple.
Which makes no sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
So.
To me, they should both be here for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I just want to see him play, and I want to see him play in one spot or DH. Period.
I agree.
Like that's what I want to see.
Yeah. No, I understand why people want to see Morel in the lineup because the dude hit 9 home runs in 12 games. It makes the guy has some massive raw power. Clearly brings an energy to the team. But yeah, I mean he was also like in a 2 for 29 slump or something like that. So I feel like to me, again, it's a theory. I think that I could see him playing tomorrow in San Francisco. So.
Oh man, if it goes 4 days, then I'm really red flag goes up. Like, what's going on?
If he doesn't play for the next 2 days after this, then I'm going to be thinking like, what are we doing? Like, is he in the doghouse? Like, he shouldn't be in the doghouse. We've seen enough of other guys who haven't played well all season, and they're not in the doghouse. Why is Christopher Morel in the doghouse? So, I mean, I don't hate tonight's lineup. We've talked about Wisdom and how he's struggled since May entered, but. I do like his matchup against the pitcher tonight. Like I said the other night, he's got to be in there against lefties, and he's got to hit against lefties. That should be like, at the very least, that's what he's got to do. And they're going up against a lefty tonight who has a 5 ERA. And so don't strike out 4 times, Wiz. That's all I'm asking, man. Put the ball in play. Make something happen. That's all I'm asking. So, and he's hitting 8th, so it's not like he'll be in like major – RBI situations, ideally, theoretically, whatever. But other than that, I don't hate tonight's lineup going up against a lefty. Cubs have been good against lefties overall, so I'm actually a little optimistic about the game tonight, despite how
Captain
angry
optimistic over there.
How angry I've been the last 2 days.
Captain Positive.
Despite the T-shirt.
I am ready to be hurt again, but yeah.
But no, I think, that's a great point you made, and I think like one of my biggest problems with Rossi is just the experiment with Morel, and we talked about it before the show, and it's just breaking down that, in the first year, if you want to put this kid in center field, that's cool. Like, you can figure it out. We did that with Wilson. We did that with Kyle being drafted as a catcher. But it didn't really work that well last year either. And it didn't really work well in AAA and all of his stints in the beginning of this year, towards the end of last year. So to really see that for what it is and to be doing it again for year 2 and expecting a different result, it's, as a coach, you kind of have to look at that and go, you got to put him somewhere. And if he's not great at third base, that's fine. I go, but Patrick Wisdom isn't the greatest consistent third baseman defensively either. So I'd rather have him out there just learning rather than Patrick Wisdom, who, is not going to be the huge focal point of this team 5+ years from now.
Well, the crazy thing is you look at those two guys, and one or the other probably should be playing third, although I saw someone saying today, bring Madrigal back. Let him play third base the rest of the season. I would say you look at those two guys, and they're the top two names for home runs on the team still. Yeah. Like Morel hasn't hit one forever. Wisdom's gone into a huge slump after they both had a hot streak of home runs, and that's been enough to lead this team, which we kind of knew going into the season was going to lack some firepower. And so that's not a good sign when two guys who've had major slumps are 1 and 2.
To argue that a little bit, I feel like if Bellinger didn't get hurt, perhaps he'd be right up there with Wisdom, but this is what the cards we were dealt, right? So, it's a little alarming that those two are the top two guys in home runs for this team.
I think I know the injury played a factor with Seiya early in the season, but I still think we thought we'd be getting more power out of Seiya this season when we started the preseason stuff. Yeah. And, Dan,
6?
Power-wise, Dansby's been off to a little bit of a slow start too. Hopefully that evens out, but the problem is record-wise, you don't really have time for that to happen. David Haw, by the way, former colleague of mine, I disagree with him on this. David came out today and said Mervis needs to go to Iowa if the Cubs care about winning it all right now. Now the key is, though, when I first saw the headline, it was Mervis needs to go to Iowa. I disagree with that because I don't know what he's got to prove at Iowa unless needs to mentally restart himself. Needs to see himself hit the ball like it's a grapefruit over and over to come back and get his confidence back. But that doesn't seem like it's it. So, but he does go on. It is if the Cubs care about winning at all right now. Listen, he's just not the top of my list for guys that indicates. Right? Like, I'm not saying the Cubs shouldn't be at that point right now. I think they should be at the point where they're starting to think about, we talked about it with Ryan like a week ago, when do the prospects become more important than trying to sneak into the postseason as a division champ? Hey, man, I don't know if it's today, tomorrow, or the next day, but you're at that. You're right on the threshold or right at the edge of the Grand Canyon looking down saying, maybe we should just play the prospects. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, then why would you send Mervis down at all?
Right.
Do you think Mervis should be here?
I mean, I'm a good friend of Mervis personally, so I want him here, and I'll give him every MVP vote if I had one. But I think the big problem for me is you designate Eric, and this is what you're doing now. Like, this is what it has to be, because now you can't bring down Matt, because then you just have Trey Mancini, and he hasn't been consistent since he left Baltimore. And that's my big problem for that is I felt like personally Eric should have stayed on this roster even if he didn't play that much, because you're keeping him here to mentor Matt Mervis. You have Trey Mancini mentoring Matt Mervis, a bunch of guys who maybe they're not going to bring anything from an offensive production standpoint, but an actual place to where Matt Mervis can develop. What's Matt going to learn in Iowa that he hasn't already learned? He does everything. And the only things he can't learn are things he's not going to see in Iowa with the off-speed stuff and just guys throwing nasty sliders, nasty off-pitch pitches. And it's like, at the end of the day, this is just the process. And Cody and I talk about it every single day is guys come up and you want them to be MVPs. And that's cool, but that's not everybody's Ellie De La Cruz. Like, that's not going
Chris
to happen.
Bryant in our for Cubs fans.
Right, Chris Bryant.
After last night, it would be sweet if they had Ellie De La Cruz.
Man, kid's a monster. That's a whole different podcast. But I do think at the end of the day, guys like Morel, who at the beginning of the year you said there wasn't a roster spot for, and then miraculously 2 weeks into the season, maybe there is one. And it's like, that's my just big thing with the whole entire organization right now is you want everybody to be ready because the fans are tired of it, but really it's only been 2 years since the core left. I'm not rushing it. PCA can stay as long as he wants. Brennan can stay as long as he wants, because when these guys do actually do a key word, which is developing, which is what no one's giving them time to do, I think it's going to be a beautiful thing.
See, the hard part about that is not the entire fan base is less than 50 years old. Those of us that are 50 are like, I ain't got that much time to wait around for another rebuild.
The thing that I'll always argue back on that, Mike, is that Jed said at the 2021 after the 2021 trade deadline, he openly said that this wouldn't be a rebuild like the one when Theo first arrived. And so I took that to heart. And I feel like a lot of other fans did too, on top of the fact that they're also charging $15 for a beer, beautiful historic Wrigley Field, and it's not exactly cheap to get a hot dog there either. So, and also tickets aren't cheap either. So if you're gonna do all that, then the fans have every right to expect to at least be playing meaningful games in September. On the flip side, I do agree that you can't put all this pressure on all these young dudes and everything and expect Matt Mervis to just be God like he was in Iowa, and same thing with Morel. Like, you can't expect that, but I do think that putting those guys in position to succeed is something that I think we can all agree has been a struggle, in which that's probably a criticism for David Ross from me is, we were talking about Morel over there, like they played him in left and right field. It went awful. The only place in the outfield where it looks like he's at least a little comfortable is in center. And then the fact that there's an open spot at third base and they haven't even at least given him the opportunity to see if he can do it. The one problem that he's had at third base was just throwing the ball accurately to first base. And it's not like he can't throw the ball there, like it doesn't have the arm strength. It's just that it's not accurate. And again, that was last year. You telling me he didn't work on that in the offseason? You telling me that he hadn't been working on that pregame before every game, like Marquee keeps showing, like almost every day? Why not give the guy a shot? I'm not saying he could, if they give him the shot, he's going to turn into some like the next Nolan Arenado defensive guru at third base. But I'm telling you, if you want that bat in the lineup, then you got to give him the shot eventually. And so like that's probably my biggest criticism when it comes to the young guys. It's like, just feels like sometimes they're not putting them in position to succeed. And Morel's a big one that highlights that. Mervis, again, I just think the guy needs a little bit more time. I think the last two games, he's looked a lot better. Last night he would have had another extra base hit that would have perhaps maybe driven in a run. But, of course, he hit it 110 miles per hour right into the right fielder's glove. And that's baseball. You know what I mean? So, like, I think that, again, especially with Mervis, because – yeah, they DFA'd Hosmer, and I was happy that they did, but at the same time, like, if they would have kept him and just like Phantom IL'd him, I would have been okay with that too. And then he could have sat in the dugout and been that mentor that you said. They didn't do that. I don't know why. I don't really care. I still think that you got to get Mervis reps. You got to play him every day, and if you're not going to play him at first base every day, then he's got to be a DH because he's a left-handed power hitter, and the Cubs don't have one in their lineup right now with Bellinger out. He's got to play.
I think that's your point, though, and that's with your drawback. I love it, is like it's not their fault that Jed said that. And I think that was the expectations that Theo never put on them. Like, people forget Javi wasn't Javi when he first came here. Like, I remember I went to his first game at Wrigley Field, bought that guy's jersey, played a little while, and then right back to Iowa. And wasn't seen again until the middle of 2015. And it's like, it's one of those conversations where no one went at Javi like that. No one tried to force him to come up and be something he wasn't ready to be. And by the time he did figure it out, he put together that MVP type year, which we all still think he should have won. But I think at the end of the day, you're looking at these guys, because Jed made the comments he did, you're expecting PCA to magically come here after getting traded and jump from single A to triple A and then just miraculously be starting in center every day. Brennan Davis, who coming off of back surgery. There's Caleb Killian, who never really got that opportunity in a consistent role, jumping throughout a rotation. It's like, I completely agree with everything you said, but to me, it's like you kind of just look at Jed if you're in that situation and you're like, man, like.
Well, he also could have spent money on guys on better free agents.
Right, and who could fill that role.
It's sort of a pick a lane. Like I've said before, they're walking a fine line. It's a tightrope, and right now they got one leg hanging off, and they're hanging on by one hand.
Barely.
There's
like a few fingers on it.
It's not going well. Like they almost have to pick a lane here, which you might get at the trade deadline. Like that may happen. Mervis, correct me if I'm wrong, struggled a little bit in 2021 and then found his way.
He's very bad.
So that's what he's working on here. If that happened last year, of course it's going to happen at the major league level.
Yeah.
That's the hardest jump.
Right.
So let him play it out.
We'll see.
I just don't think what he's got to prove. And to me, once you're 9 games, or if it happens tonight, 10 games under, then you got to flip the switch to the other path. Because
what's the point?
No, you're not playing for a wild card. That's not happening.
Not in this division, no.
You're playing to win the division, and that's
it's unfortunate that they're in this position while playing in the worst division in the National League, and the fact that we're sitting here on June 8th and we're seriously thinking about, just punting the season, and it's just like, shouldn't be this way, man. I understand you got to develop and you got to do this, and the young guys got to do this and that, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of blame on a lot of people. Front office, David Ross has made a lot of questionable decisions, and then obviously the players too. I'm sorry, like with this roster, this team shouldn't be 10 games under. Bullpen, we've talked about it a lot. The bullpen has been horrendous, and I openly said that I was not worried about the bullpen on opening day, and credit to me for saying that I was wrong. And
man of integrity,
and I was just way off about that. Yeah. So I can't explain why things are the way they are.
No, I think everybody gets a pass right now nobody gets a pass right now except Marcus Stroman is what I meant to say, because he's the only one that to me is showing that I want to win a championship. Like, that's the mentality he goes out with every single day. And, I believe Tyone probably has that same mentality, but execution is so important to that mentality. And you can't have a Mamba mentality without the Mamba. So it's like, to me, right now you're looking at everybody and you just see the life is sucked out of them. And every time Marcus comes, he talks about the electricity at the field and the fans and how much that matters to him. But you're not really seeing that from everybody else. And I think it could be something that rolls around in July. It could be, we could be having a totally different conversation later on. But right now it's,
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I agree with Gary Ross.
Oh, what did Gary say?
Steele gets a pass for me too.
Oh yeah, Steele gets a pass
like
as well.
Steele and Stroman, that's kind of the
starting rotation. Honestly, the entire
that's
thing.
Really
even Tyone in a way, because he changed a new team. Stroman struggled his first couple months.
I have no complaints about
Darvish.
Dansby. That's the crazy thing, is that there's individual performances that aren't adding up to team success, which is sort of weird in baseball. Like, usually those things, if you have enough individual guys that are having good seasons, usually that translates into winning, and it's not. Mostly, I think that's because of the bullpen, to be honest with you. It's like, it's two big problems. It's the bullpen and a lack of
consistent offense.
And
when we say about consistent, the one thing it's consistently done is be bad with runners in scoring position since the month of April ended.
Right.
Well, that's another reason people keep thinking that the team's going to turn around. It's like, well, this is bad luck, Right. All the algorithms tell you that the bad luck's going to change. Well, yeah, but if it changes when it's too late, then it's too late. Yeah. So, how do you feel about Smyly? Because he had a stretch of, I don't know,
almost
8, 9, 10 start. I don't know if he's up to 10 starts, but at least 7 or 8 starts that were really, really good in a row. He's another guy that I would say, I can't complain about what Drew Smyly's given me as a 3 or a 4.
Yeah, so
or a 5. However you want to look at him.
On Saturday in San Diego. I admittedly didn't watch the game, but
his last 2 are probably
his last 2
sliding
have been
downhill,
a little iffy. But he also gone up against some good teams. So this Angels team is average, right? They played better than what their record says, in my opinion, these last 2 days. But I feel good with him. I guess that's the best way I can explain it, is I feel confident that the Cubs can go out there and he can give them quality innings, 5-6 innings, and use that knuckle curveball he's got and get ground ball outs. I feel good with him. And it's nice that he's a lefty, so I can't believe I'm saying this, but I feel like Shohei Ohtani might not beat us completely tonight. Mike Trout, on the other hand, I'm a little afraid.
Man.
Joe says the offense is bad. Don't sugarcoat it. No, I'm not.
We're not sugarcoating it.
It's a bad offense. They had said last night they had 3 hits. How are you going to win that game?
Right.
The night before they had 1 ball that was hit hard. So that's 2 nights in a row where you're like, okay.
I think that's just us too, though. At the same time, like there's such a high expectation for Dansby Swanson right now. But like you said earlier, like if you understand his game and who he is, and I mean this in the most respectful way because I love Dansby, but he's so similar as Javi when it comes to the strikeout rate in his entire career. And that's something that, he's Javi. He just takes his walks. He understands how to actually take his pitches. But that's something that for everybody saying, oh, Dansby's striking out a lot. He's a bust. He's this, he's that. That's not the case. That's just who Dansby Swanson is. He's still going to give you 25 to 20 home runs a year. He's still going to be a Gold Glover at shortstop. Like, you thinking just
a higher F4 than the other three,
right?
Than the other 3 guys that were free agent shortstops this last offseason.
He's been the best deal out of the bunch by
100%,
by far.
by far.
Anyone who's saying Dansby Swanson is a bust, I just think that you're a casual.
Right.
That's the best way I can say it without being disrespectful.
It's so frustrating to see that on Twitter and to see all these different things, and it's just that conversation of like, I get you want to win right now, but you can't just say his production hasn't been successful so far as a Cub.
It ain't his fault that they're losing games, man. Right. He comes to the ballpark every day, plays every day, gives you elite defense at short, gives you quality at bats. He ain't the reason, man. No. He ain't the reason. And right now it looks like a steal of a contract considering how much Trey Turner is getting paid and how much of a slow start he's off to. And same thing with Correa, who I was like, going into last offseason, I was like, we got to get Correa. We all of us here on this set were like, we got to get Correa.
You wanted both of them. You wanted Danny.
Well, okay. What's his name? Mark Feinstein. Like he
floated it out there.
He floated it out there, and I was like, I talked myself into it real quick.
Yeah. I like Gary's comment he pulled up though. He said Amaya gets a pass too, and that's exactly what we're talking about. Coming off Tommy John, he missed his year in the COVID year. People don't talk about minor league guys. You were either at Site A or Site B, or you weren't playing. Mm-hmm. And Amaya is one of those guys that he's doing a lot better, but
almost hit a homer last night.
Right, for his development though, like it is not in his best interest to be in the majors right now, in my opinion. And I think that's something that they've rushed, and I hope it works out for him. But you're not giving.
Barnhart's been so bad that like they had.
And however, if he is here, then he needs to play every day, which is why I'm cool with him being the DH tonight. If you want to get Gomes behind the plate, cool. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have to catch every night, but I want him playing every night because again. I have crossed the threshold of start thinking about the young guys and stop worrying about
Amaya,
playing time
I
for guys
tweeted
you
last
promised.
night. Amaya continues to blow my mind because what you just said, the fact that he was coming off Tommy John, and then at the end of last year he got hurt again, and wasn't able to play at the Arizona Fall League, I'm pretty sure. And then, obviously, the COVID year wasn't able to play.
I don't think he played spring training that much either.
Yeah, so, like, what he's doing right now with the Cubs is very impressive. I know he's got over 100 bats in the minor leagues this year, so it's not like he hasn't played a ton in 2023, but to see that the production that he has brought, it is impressive. And the Cubs they're unfortunately are in a position where they're forced to kind of ride this wave that he's giving them right now. And I hope that it's just because he's that good. I mean, he was the top prospect in the organization at one time and, fell out because of injuries and stuff. So, I hope that he continues to do what he's doing. All the pitchers have raved about him in terms of game calling and all that stuff. That's awesome. That's why people, when he was in Iowa this last time, a lot of people on social media would at me and say, when's Amaya coming back? When's Amaya coming? I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I want him to get some at-bats at the minor league level because he hasn't played. And, in his first stint here, I didn't necessarily feel – I felt like he was getting a little outmatched, at least offensively. Mm-hmm. And this time around, the offenses looked a lot better for him. And so, again, they just got to ride the wave with him. I love seeing him in the middle of the lineup tonight. And, I hope he doesn't go back to the minor leagues. I hope he plays well enough to where he doesn't, and you caught lightning in a bottle with him because all three of us here probably coming into the year were like, we might see Amaya at the end of the year. I sure as hell didn't think that we'd see Amaya until the second half of
June.
Yeah.
Not in June.
I didn't think we saw him at all.
We saw him his first stint was in May, right? And it was an emergency situation.
Miami, right?
Yeah.
I think when he played his first game coming back from an injury, we were kind of like, wow, that was quick.
Yeah.
Like, that was a pretty quick return. I do want to ask you about your DraftKings pick of the night. Or you got a hit parlay for us?
Okay, so I'll give you 2 picks, Luke, because I love you. We're riding Nico Horner under a half strikeout at -105, which is like just great value. Now, Detmers, I think that's how you say his name, he strikes out a lot of guys. He's gone double-digit strikeouts in multiple starts this year.
But not Nico Horner.
But Nico Horner has one of the lowest strikeout rates in all of baseball. He hasn't struck out his last 2 games. To get it at -105, I think it's worth the risk. So that's my single bet tonight.
All right.
The hit parlay is Trout, Gomes, and Amaya.
Really?
Yeah, plus 225.
The bold part of that is 2 Cubs.
Yeah, I know.
After watching Mike Trout, that's not bold.
Gomes mashes lefties. He's mashed lefties this year.
And 2 Cubs catchers.
We just talked about Amaya and how he's been hitting well. Almost hit a homer last night. And then, unfortunately, Mike Trout has 2 homers off Drew Smyly in his career. So
I don't know.
I just hope Trout stays in the park.
I think I'm done with it.
Get a base hit in the first inning and be done with it. That's it. You know what I mean?
I got a question for you. If you're starting a team today, I think I asked Steven this the other night when we were sitting on the couch. If you're starting a team today, everything factors into it, the contract, the age, all of those things. But if every team out there goes back to empty rosters and you have the number 1 pick, who's your player?
Well, age matters, man. I don't know. I mean, I'd probably still go with Shohei. I want to say Elliot De La Cruz just based off the recency bias. He's so young and he looks like going to be a superstar, but
the other guy plays 2 positions. For me, it's still Shohei.
He hasn't proved enough. So yeah, I gotta go with Shohei. You get 2 superstars in 1 player.
Acuna's a good one because of the contract.
Yeah.
But remember what I said. Remember, I did the comparison this offseason. I said, all right, player A, player B. Last year, who was this guy? Who was this guy? One was Acuna, and one was Seiya. It was, and the stats were identical.
They were, yeah,
identical.
I was mind blown when we did that show, and now Acuna is in the MVP race, and Seiya,
right,
he's been fine. He needs, honestly, for what the Cubs are paying him, I think you can argue that he needs to be better. Needs to bring more. He needs to slug more, but I also don't think he's been horrific. I don't think he's cost the team wins, but yeah.
All right, who you got tonight? Pregame standings. I have 18 wins. Ryan has 12. Corey has 14. Cody has 9. Brendan has 7. Producers have 3.
Okay.
Picks tonight. Mike didn't know he was doing the show, so he didn't make a pick. Do you want to make a pick before we start?
Is it Cubs Angels?
You can't. Yeah, you can't take
like a player.
You got to pick a player.
Okay.
You can't pick a pitcher, and you can't pick an Angels player.
Yeah, and you can't take
Gomes, Happ,
Amaya.
Ryan said Miggy, and I said there's only one Miggy. That's Montero, so we're giving him Montero. Wisdom or Swanson.
I can't pick any of them.
No, you can't take any of those.
So Nico's left.
Yeah.
Talkman's left.
Yeah, you just give me Nico. I'm cool. I'll take Nico by a mile. I think that's where I'd have to be.
I took Dansby, but I was going to take Talkman.
Really?
He seems like he's been
hero. What do you call it? The Palatine Pounder?
Palatine Pounder, but now that I know he lives in Arlington Heights, all greatness ends up in Arlington Heights. Starts there and ends
He
there.
has been good for the Cubs. So.
Gary Ross says, where is Talkman? Craig's taking Nico. All right. Well, we'll see.
So I'm riding with Wisdom because he's the one in the lineup struggling the most. And as I said, I'm starting to take the guys who are struggling the most in hopes to manifesting them playing well. Because every time I take one who is playing well, they suck. So this is reverse psychology once again.
It's the way to go.
Cody's given up.
I've also given up on who you got.
Somebody said that on Twitter. They're like, "Is Cody giving up?" Yep.
Yeah, because I took Master Boney last night.
He's waved the white. He's waved the white flag.
Man.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm ready to be heard again.
I agree, Nick. Talkman wouldn't be a bad take. RWB team with the super chat for $2. I am ready to be disappointed again, guys. So that would be yet another shirt. Obvious shirts, by the way, you can make your own.
Yeah, you can make your own shirt now.
Yeah. Saw they threw this up. Arlington Heights Assassin. That's a possibility, Craig.
Yeah. It's hard to say that considering it's not like he's slugging the ball out of the ballpark, but,
Right.
I mean, that's fine.
It's a pretty hard name, though.
Yeah, it is a pretty hard name.
Colada, I have a yen for 10 under. I have this yen for 10. I don't know what that means, Colada.
I don't know if that means either.
Colada's lost me this. The Godfather is
The Godfather.
completely lost me on that one. 17 likes. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out. And we hope you'll join us for the post-game show late tonight. Stay up for it. If this gets out of hand early, it could be an ice cream social night. We could be making an ice cream social run. Hopefully not, though. Hopefully the Cubs score some early runs and get some production from the top of the lineup.
Yeah, I mean,
Nothing from
we
it
talked
last
about at
night.
the beginning of last night's post game. I mean, the top 4 guys have really struggled the last few days. So I need Nico to get on base first inning and then steal second. That's what I need. When this team was playing well, he was getting on base somehow, some way, stealing second almost right away.
That sounded like a parlay you have on the side. That's what that sounded like.
It's not, but if people were doing that at the beginning of the year, man, you probably made a lot of money.
Oh, man.
Not anymore, but I think that's a good way to jumpstart the offense. Though, like if they can, you gotta get Nico going, man. Like he's been so good for them overall, but like he needs to start getting on base more consistently again and being a factor on the bases.
Colada says 10 under 500. Book it. He's going to bed. Thanks for checking out the CHGO Cubs pregame show podcast presented by DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use the promo code CHGO when you sign up. Fly the W, and we'll be back here after the game. Hope you will, too. Thanks for watching.